Today is the 18th of October 2016. Yesterday this article came out again on Intel Dinar Chronicles, and it relates again to the global currency reset. And following on from the previous few videos that I've been putting a few out there topics, because ultimately it all ties into the same thing anyway. And to actually understand a lot of this stuff is simply just beyond our abilities, but there is clearly some sort of movement happening. Anyway, I will just read this fairly long article with link and documentation because it actually is quite interesting and you won't hear this anywhere. Now, I'm still trying to understand exactly what this exactly means, but I'm up against the clock because I'm going to be travelling very shortly and don't have time to really crunch this down to put it into a better format of understanding. So it's going to be down to your own personal abilities in order to take what information you think is relevant from this and to hopefully chip in as a community and discuss this in the comment section, obviously paying no attention to the negative people out there. So as we all know, currency global reset is coming. We don't know exactly when, but it's coming. So this article reads, A New Republic via Global Currency Reset. And this was compiled the early morning of the 17th of October by Judy Byington, again author of 22 Faces. A. All world debt was forgiven as of 8 p.m. EST October the 15th, 2016, according to a press conference announced by the Indonesian President Widodo and his Chief Supreme Court Justice, Dr. Hatta. And then there's a link to an article regarding this and also a link to a video on part B. So if I just flick over to this first section, and this is from a site called Swiss Indo World Trust International Orbit, NEO, the United Kingdom of God, Sky, Earth. And for those of you who had some connection in my previous videos, you will find this video very interesting. And for those of you who were lost and disapprove of the previous video, now's a good time to switch off and go find something else to watch. And I will resume regular videos shortly. So I've tried doing some research into what this Swiss Indo is. And as I will show you later on, I kind of think it's a merge between Switzerland and Indonesia in terms of linking gold and funding. But this is all purely speculation on my part, so I could be massively wrong. Anyway, it appears that the government and the Supreme Court have done some ruling during this month in Indonesia. And you'll be aware that a lot of nations and world leaders very recently went to Indonesia. So it goes on to say in these links, Debt Burden Liberation Certificate disseminated in Lampung, and this was originated from West Java. So this organisation, Swiss Indo World Trust, has its headquarters in Cirebon. And let me get back into the article, which is giving us information about what Swiss Indo is. The purpose of this present correspondence is to introduce our organisation and to open a diplomatic correspondence channel between Swiss Indo World Trust International Orbit, NEO, the United Kingdom of God, Sky, Earth, the leaders of the world, and the international press. We all share the same vision and goal for our humanity, which is total freedom, equality, prosperity, and peace for all nations and people of our planet. This presentation is designed to better help you understand the history of events leading up to this momentum point in time. Our main objective is to offer a transparent platform of information to help you understand the various parties and resources that comprise one of the most ambitious projects in known history. Due to the amazing sequence of events initiated and powered by some of the most dynamic, freedom-seeking people on the planet, we stand at a crossroads where we have the unique opportunity to permanently lift humanity out of misery and poverty as we watch the old, unfair system crumble around us in every direction. The initiative has been organised by the 681st king in an unbroken line of Indonesian servant king called, quote, King of Kings, end quote, Mr. Sino AS. The initiative aims for nothing less than the total empowerment and individual sovereignty of all the people worldwide. How do we intend to do that? By eradicating all forms of war, slavery, poverty, and by providing the means for each man, woman, and child to live up to their full unlimited potential. Additionally, substantial funding is being provided for the redevelopment and modernisation of our global infrastructure and the realignment of the public sector employees to faithfully serve the one people. Swiss Indo World Trust International Orbit is a non-profit humanitarian and sovereign organisation with its own combined collateral of Exhibits A and B, certificate QR, and UBS number, in the total amount of 78 billion kilograms of gold and platinum. UN Swiss Indo was founded by the founding fathers in 1887 and holder of certificates for 25 parent countries, parent banks and parent armies, including country certificate of NKRI 17/8/1945, which I'm guessing will be the end of the war, World War II, covering land series 1 to 4, World van Eigendom Verpanden Ondernemingen Land Reform of International Certificate, Convenal UBS 1951, Keeper of UN Registration, Batavia 1945, UN Approval Number MISA 81704, Licenser of Patent License Agreement of Guaranteed Legal Payment Standard World Currency Printing. Also sole custodian of 884 World Bank Infinite Collateral Accounts since its transfer of ownership in 2012 in accordance with the World 12 Portal document. And guys, a lot of this is just going to be like, what the fuck? UN Swiss Indo is headed by a single owner, single authority, one personal only and non-commercial, the Royal K681 HM, which stands for a Royal Highness, Mr. A1 Sino, ASS2, and a load of other legalization printing guys. So, you can pause that and read the rest of those. The mission was started by the late founder of United Nations, first President of Indonesia, President Sukarno, and the President of the United States of America, John F. Kennedy, with the Green Hilton Memorial Agreement. Their Executive Order 1110 was to end the financial slavery system, eradicate poverty, end the global financial crisis to bring heaven on earth. Now UN Swiss Indo is here to complete the mission. All above mentioned facts are legal, signed and sealed by the Mahkamah Agung Spring number 81704-009M1 on June the 23rd, 2016. So guys, this is the seal that they use. The King of Kings. Now obviously you would be very skeptical reading all this and hearing all this. But when it comes up with various proven executive orders, people that we know about, John F. Kennedy, and what he was trying to do with this executive order for the greater good of humanity, to suddenly be assassinated. Now these guys are picking up the baton. So what else is going on? And bear in mind that they've got 80 billion kilograms of gold as collateral. And we're aware of various families that are in Asia at the moment, namely the White Dragon family, and they are all part of the world's wealthiest freedom fighters, effectively, that are trying to change this capture of mankind. And whether you believe in the spirituality sides that I'm trying to put across as well, because it's all a personal development, being a citizen of Earth, you know. Sure, we all are very concerned about money, but when you look at the deeper root cause, how important really is a financial item, a material good, when you're looking at higher enlightenment via understanding more, not only about ourselves, but about our past, about our futures, and about what the system is about. And I don't just mean a financial system, I mean a solar system, because the more that you actually find out, the more you step away from the importance of money being fiat currencies. And then apart, it's also gold and silver and bitcoins and things like that, because this is only material things. In this current world, in this current life that we live, yes, those things are very important because it creates security for ourselves. But that's only a physical security and understanding. So that's why I'm covering these topics, because I think there's a more spiritual element that we need to also take into ourselves and learn and nurture and try to grow as better people and try to help other people see that. So we'll carry on. B, number 1. There was a major process which was triggered on Friday, October the 14th. After the announcement on Saturday the 15th of October, there was a legal window of 72 hours for this debt forgiveness to go into effect. 3. Evidently, the plan was for Indonesia to go first and then be used as a template for other countries to follow. As of Monday, October the 17th, there would be no more debt globally, for it was forgiven. Monies had been moved to paymasters, with appointments set to release liquid funds to a number of parties, such as historical bonds, boxes, H-bonds, and currencies. According to TNT, Suzy, Swisindo World Trust International Orbit, headquartered in Cirebon, West Java, recently issued debt burden liberation certificates to be used to notify 6 prime banks, BCA, BNI, BRI, Niaga, Danamon and Mandiri, and other banks in Indonesia. The Swisindo has already paid off debts of all Indonesian citizens whose debt accrued as of February the 4th, 2016. C. October the 16th, 2016, BB. Have you ever been to a football game where there was always an idiot armchair quarterback who is yelling rude things from the sidelines to the players who are out there playing their hearts out in the rain and muck? I'm a grandmother who has been to plenty of these games. Intel providers are the players and we are the armchair quarterbacks in the cheap seats. The people who are in charge of the revaluation have had to change direction 1,000,000 times to satisfy the leaders and people of 209 countries, set up a new financial system, including putting 2 satellite systems into outer space, fight World War III with the cabal, pony up thousands of tons of gold for each of those countries, move it around the world, etc. Lives have been lost. There are thousands of moving pieces to be considered at any given moment 24/7. I think everyone who brings intel in such a fluid time as this deserves better than what is being given by some idiotic posts lately. D. October the 16th. Situation Report by Veritas. This is really the story of power and how it corrupts people, organizations and nations. I am often questioned on my beliefs as to what is happening in America. It goes like this, quote, "This is the United States. How can you possibly believe that something like Nisara could happen here?" End quote. Then there is my favourite quote, "How can you say these things and alarm people? That's irresponsible." End quote. America, I ask you, can you really sit there and not believe there are wealthy and powerful people that want to determine the flow of money here? Can you prove to me that there aren't such people influencing our politics and our news? Why do I read information in other countries about the US that never show up on our news? Do you not notice the news stopped being neutral and started projecting opinions? Have you not noticed the younger generations, how much trouble they are in because they are almost totally addicted to food stamps and handouts? Are you so unaware? Now, when I tell you that there are military people, admirals and generals and others, that are determining how they can best carry out their character to protect the US Constitution, perhaps you could take a moment and follow the logic of it with me. In the 1930s, there was a lot of corruption in the US banking system. It wasn't regulated, at least not enforced, and it was privately run. It is in the history books. Willie Nelson used to do concerts about the farmers' plight. The bankers were in collusion with the federal regulators at the time. The goal was to obtain farm property en masse. Banks would put clauses in the tiny print that later allowed the property to be taken, such as indicating that upon the farmer's death, the property reverted to the bank. This was done without disclosure to the person taking the loan, and often resulted in a nasty surprise for those who thought they were inheriting family farms and could carry on the decades-old tradition of working the land. Often, the banks would take payments in cash and then never record them, later declaring default and then taking them over. The farmers were helpless to stop it. There are lots of sites where you can get in-depth details. Do some research. For my purposes here, let me summarise. The situation grew until it involved many farmers and became a class action lawsuit of enormous size. Those hurt by the situation included one general who was co-plaintiff in the farmers' cases when it finally went to the US Supreme Court in the 1980s. Racing through our speedy court system, it reached the 9 Supreme Court judges in early 1993. 7 of the 9 judges ruled on major issues in a closed court for national security purposes. These rulings included official court statements that the Federal Reserve banking system was unconstitutional, that the US had been operating outside of the Constitution since March of 1933, that major reforms of government and banking systems were required, and most importantly for us here, that financial redress and remedies must be provided for financial losses due to bank fraud suffered by generations of farmers. These reformations were extraordinary and happened because so many admirals and generals were involved and aware of the wrong. You can read the final court case up to a certain point. Then it was sealed by a court, and all court records and people directly involved were given a strict NDA by the Supreme Court until the reformation was made public. From this section, take away the thought that this was huge, involved a lot of people for compensation after decades taken to resolve it, and that it was kept for obvious national reasons. The next part is where it gets interesting. Again, summarising greatly, the military latched on to the situation. Some of the very best constitutional attorneys became involved in helping determine how this situation could be used for the issues greatly concerning the military, our country's departure from the constitutional adherence. Because this was implemented by the Supreme Court level, those justices who ruled in favour now had vested interest in determining how the court's orders were to be fulfilled. During this process, the 16th Amendment, the Income Tax Amendment, was discovered as never having been ratified and was included in the reforms ordered by the court. This established a pattern of both federal administrators and Congress ignoring constitutional law since 1933. This began when Franklin Delano Roosevelt declared the national banking emergency and amended the Trading with the Enemy Act. A committee was formed and given the authority to manage the announcement and implementation of the Supreme Court ordered reforms. You are probably not aware, but every public official is required to sign a Nisara resignation form when they take office. That includes all members of Congress and the President and Vice President of the United States. These documents represent the public officials' agreement that if Nisara is enacted, their position is dissolved. Certain actions were taken since the 1990s and some were not. There was a new currency, the Treasury Note, or TRN, that was printed, backed by gold and shipped to sit in vaults waiting for announcement. This has been used outside of the US for years, just not publicly announced. A general farm claims process began, which was to design financial redress to Americans. There has been a lot of interference that has made this a slow process, but it got there at any rate. In 1998, the general and admirals brought in new legal experts, the very best, to assess the situation and how to bring the reforms out and correct the misdirection when the major facets of our government, such as the Federal Reserve Bank, became corporations owned by private individuals rather than representing our country. It is easy to verify, it's just that one would never think to check and see that some of the royalty of England and very wealthy individuals actually own our Federal Reserve. Profit earned there is returned to the equity holder and is drained off in large quantities, large enough to assist greatly with our national debt. By the way, to stop the stalling that was happening by the judges of the Supreme Court, it was decided to compile the reformations into the law and have it passed by Congress. This was the beginning of the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, NESARA. So now we find out exactly what that actually represents. The National Economic Security and Reformation Act. This was passed by quorum by members of the US Senate and House very privately. Can they do that? Yes, they can. Study it out. Since then, the military has moved forward strongly in preparation. General Dunford is the name to watch for. I will have to give more detail, or you can find plenty of the actions taken on this major change. Here's what is important, very important. The new republic, as represented by General Dunford, has been fully, completely, and unutterably accepted by the international community in a fully legal fashion. Though Obama takes credit for everything, it is in the republic that has been recognised and taken action at the G20, with the Paris Accord, and with the IMF, the White Dragon family, providing the gold behind the new currency as required by the IMF, the BOC and their excellent software programmers creating a global interface for their new international transfer and banking system, CIPS. And on it goes. The highest court in the world, The Hague, has been involved closely and working with General Dunford on this transition. It is only the American people that is aware of the currency and this governmental change. How can I make such a statement? How can I be certain? It is because of my political, international, business and republic associations. Why do I bother explaining? Now that is a very good question. I am in a position to realise the impact on citizens and I care about that. I want a better future for my children and their children. It is a case where naivety might be quite dangerous. It is time to consider whether you feel that there might be even the most remote possibility that this is true. It is already in place, though under the radar, so why not find out about it? If what I say is true, then it will soon be more apparent out in the public. The transition is being handled very carefully because you can imagine a public reaction could be lively. Returning to our constitution is not without its own cost, just as our founding fathers experienced in their own dilemma in fighting tyranny. Should we? Shouldn't we? They were people, so much like you and I. They would embrace this heartily. To those of you in the belief category, in wonderful groups like this one, I commend you on your openness and courage. It hasn't been easy, has it? I am glad to be able to reassure you and bring even a bit of comfort to long-time supporters. You are right. It is very true, and in the end, all will know it. The question is, how open will the change be with the US? Even as I write this, the New Republic's General Dunford, White Dragon elders and others are pushing the financial release of a global currency reset, revaluation, funding out the door. Behind the scenes, this is anything but quiet. General Dunford has had 4 attempts on his life in the last week. The last one included a sniper shooting at both the general and 2 elders as they exited a building. A very, very close call, this one. Both the elders and the general are now ready for full implementation with no more delays. It has already begun. I have reports around the world verifying bond releases. The farmers' claims have been processed along with other key class action groups. The last report I had was that Tier 3, the Internet group tier, was proposing, and that announcement of its beginning would be withheld until everything announced in the shotgun approach, all at once. I would watch for this any time. Every contact indicating it is flowing smoothly and progressing to release. This is a slight revision from the post made earlier. It was held for a bit, most frustrating so updated. There can be time shifts in an estimate like this. There are a lot of details involved in the technical side of release that sometimes slow things down, as it did the other day with Tier 3 releases. The threats to Dunford also caused lost time. The motivation to have this released and decrease the pressure on Dunford just went to a new level when the elders were included as targets. They don't get even, they take action and fast. It needs to happen. They know it. We know it. It is logical that delays at this point cause more harm than good. It's like a baby being born. At some point, it is just going to happen. We are at that point. Be careful. Be aware. Watch and see the connections. So now we'll carry on with the main article, guys. So after those bullet points, which are basically taken from that article, it goes on to this ZAP report. The new Old Republic and underground government are about to go live. This week we will see a start. This is firm. The economic stimulus rollout will conclude this month and be implemented within October and November. Long ago, vast amounts of wealth were accumulated by the European royals. Thousands of years of gold and gem mining wound up in various hands over the centuries as one country plundered another in wars and took the booty back home. The wealth changed hands many times, but in the end was put into the vaults and kept safe. The big wealth came from the Spanish during their conquests. Some wound up in various spots in Asia. The Philippines was the archipelago that was given free title to the Rodriguez family trust. A large portion of Solomon's wealth wound up in the Sukarno family hands. All the wealth is now under the jurisdiction of the Chinese royals, who comprise the Committee of 300 as a small group within that group. The elders have provided a vast store of gold to the US to back the new US Treasury notes of the global currency reset. And guys, it goes into more links there. So I'm going to now switch over to this link here. Again, back from the Swiss Indo World Trust. And you can obviously go to this site if you want, guys, and have a look around. They got some videos and things, but I wanted to put it into my context and not just release their videos. So they've got an original copy and they have a media release. So let me just show you a couple of these release documents. So this first one, again, Kingdom of God, Sky Earth. And funnily enough, look, they have the logo of the UN and they have the all-seeing eye on top of the pyramid that you see on all the dollars. So it starts to link a lot of this stuff together because it's got endorsement from both of those elements. So there's going to be some form of symbology and numerology inside of this, which I don't know what this means, 1.828, but that is to be the world exchange rate based upon the US dollar to the RP, but it's interesting enough that it's got 2 presidential seals from the United States stamped inside of this document. So this actually gets very wordy, and you'd probably have to have an understanding of law to understand some of these contexts, but I obviously don't have that. But I'll just try and hit on a few points going through this document and try to understand as much as you can, because it's not meant to be read by the regular person. Object: enclosed financial statement. We, undersigned, Board Association of International Document, hereby certify the following. We are auditor of the Committee of the 300, the World Bank Group, United Nations. Attached hereto is a closing balance sheet of the company as of date, March the 30th, 2012. Euroclear executed on August the 27th, 2014, which accurately represents the financial institution of the company as of that date. 1. Absolutely. Petition of exhibit top 300 organizations. 3. Total asset of all prime banks, Bank Mandiri, TBK, or one of 6 prime bank in Indonesia has not balanced CIR 8% for except advanced payment cash funds of 89.5 quadrillion euros. Executed on August the 27th, 2014. Automatic of account agreement with amount of $1 billion US dollars. M1, which as we know guys is the monetary terminology, will be support of CAR 8% from advance payment because ready done regulation of Bank Mandiri TBK interest rate 1 million is 2.5%. Full risk to accepted this funds without support again by CAR 8% from M1. In our opinion, with best decision and amendment fact of the UN RA approval 81704, to the best of our knowledge, the company does not own or hold any property or assets and has no obligations, debts, claims or liabilities as of and from date March the 30th, 2012 and after UN approval number MISA 81704 due on the 17th of the 8th, 2015, held by UN Swiss Indo. Total global collateral of precious metal Exhibit A and Exhibit B, initial value 8 billion kilograms. Holder certificate volume 70 billion kilograms, with total 78 billion kilograms of precious metals. And we know that's mainly made up of gold and platinum. Bank of Indonesia, with request of SKR number under this final RT authority of the Certificate of the State, Code 99.98 Series 1 to 4, General Landlord Owner Authority, quote, World van Endenham Verpondum Ondernumping, end quote. Authority held by M1. And guys, I googled that to see if something would come up, and surprise, surprise, nothing. The account owner is a legal or other entity, such as a corporation, association, organization, etc. And guys, the reason that I found some of this information quite interesting, because I'm trying to figure out on my own psyche whether there is these forms of good and evil, this entity form which is of extraterrestrial being, and if there is in fact some light source, good and bad, and the bad light source pretending to be the good, which is currently prevailing on the earth, which is why we have all these current situations. And now the rightful power of good light could be the entity that owns the world, owns Earth. Because you hear, when you go deep into this rabbit hole, apparently Earth has been fought over many times, along with many other planets that have been destroyed in the process of battles. So could this whole Earth be legally now taken back over in custody for the goodness of humanity, which might be of a connection in life form or designed by the designer, the light, God, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, the award will be made in favour of those claimants who establish a right of ownership to the assets of the entity held by M1 with identical data code ownership in microfilm 1, quote M1, end quote, or monetary 1. Global monetary funds accept and ratified request Bank of Indonesia for exchange of Indonesian rupiah is 1.828 per US dollar, clean and clear under the secret control monetary financial system by Monetary 1, M1, authority by Exhibits AB, acceptable collateral for the Treasury Tax and Loan TT&L program. On behalf, Billion Bank Transaction Full Guarantee, undersigned by Board Association of International Document, with confirmation letter UBS number blah blah blah, is legal for all transaction in all locations. SEC, money changer, banks. Under this authorized SEC BA1, Official 1 Exhibit A, petition on the 10th of the 2nd, 2016. Before Board Association of International Documents signed by Bank of Indonesia for November the 1st, 2012, and this accredited and ratified by M1 signatory guarantor. Medallion is Clear Clearance Program, UBS World Bank Bank of Indonesia 2016. Global immunity. In virtue of power in them, hereunto enabling the federal government of the United States of America have determined to contract in the manner hereinafter, appearing as a loan, which shall be called as the Federal Reserve Bond, issued by the Office of the Secretary of the Treasury, Washington, D.C., USA. The locator and deemer will be free from criminal offence and by duty covered by complete immunity. Document for safety all parties concerned. With official of law by CTU 24 multiple currency, US banknotes and Indonesian banknotes under Exhibitor AB agreement on March the 11th, 2014. And then here's like an official seal stamp or medallion for these total amounts that have been traded and exchanged hands. This best of best decision for the certifications, instruction, and as a guide to all transaction in all locations, where which conjunction with all corporates and institutions. Signatory Guarantee Medallion, Single Resolution Board, Investment Club Ownership. Basel, Tullingen, Command and Control, and Nations Currencies, Secret Control Monetary Financial System, Presidential Seal Stamp, the blue and the red. Board Association of International Document, World Bank, WB, Union Bank of Metal, Switzerland, UBS, Bank of Indonesia. So this is why I'm kind of putting a link to this Switzerland and this Swiss Indo, because I think there's a tie between the gold being held. And that's basically that article. So there's now this image that I'm going to show you guys, which again comes from this site. License Patent Cash Funds, code Macrofilm. It's a seal deposit control statement invest deposit, Bank of Indonesia, and the serial numbers for this bond. Again, the UN stamp and the pyramid of the US stamp is also there. The Committee of 300, the International Organic Agency, United Nations Organization. So guys, I just want to show you exactly the signatures that have been placed on this document. So what does it say? We, the International Organic Agency and the Community of 300 that comprised of the selected organization of the United Nations organization assigned to the supervise ASBLP Group and HM King ASM with full diplomatic responsibilities to hereby certify the reconsolidation and the reaffirmation of the non-extending validity of the signature of King ASM when his signature in any papers appeared to the interesting parties after 30 days from the date of signed in such paper, and any full document, plead and reconsideration signed by King ASM will be automatically rejected and dismissed in order to avoid marking and selling of said papers. Any existing parties who wish to extend their deal with King ASM after 30 days of expiration will be punishable under international law. This paper is cleared from all fraudulency and other criminal offences and valid upon record to inquiries at un.org, with or without acknowledgement of King ASM. The contract will be claused and will not be opened again by owner. Sealed, prepared and signed using authorised black ink pen by the right-wing parties of the Committee of 300 on the 14th day of June 2010 and top secretary held in the UN headquarters, New York, USA. Whoever has signed this document is agreeing these terms with the Bank of Indonesia and the King, the United Nations Organization, Secretary General Moon, the International Court Justice, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and are these names that you have ever seen? International Finance Corporation, the British Royal Family, Queen Elizabeth II. I believe this is, I can see Bernanke, I can't see the rest of it. The World Bank Group, Robert Zoelak, Criminal Court, Bank of International Settlement, and check this one, Pope Benedict, the Vatican. So guys, that should be adding a little bit of validity to this article now. And we have a media release just to finish up with. And this basically sums up what exactly is happening. And I probably should have read this one first, but World Debt Burden Liberation and M1 Master Bond Vouchers declared absolute by Supreme Court as the highest law in Indonesia and the world. Cirebon, Java, Indonesia, 29th of June 2016. An international organisation based in Cirebon, West Java, Swiss-Indo World Trust International Orbit has signed, sealed and delivered a debt burden liberation certificate for all citizens of Indonesia and the world amounting up to 2 billion ruby, about 146,000 US dollars, with the official signature of the Supreme Court declaring, quote, Bank Indonesia and 6 prime banks related are released from the same burden of each citizen's debt burden as part of the purifying the universe. On the 24th of June, the Royal King Mr. A1 Suno, also known as Mr. Suno AS, received a special guest, Mr. Tukiminto SH, Consumer Protective Division Officer representing the government and the Supreme Court of Indonesia, assigned to bridge communication between the Supreme Court of Indonesia and US Swiss-Indo. An official joint decree letter was signed by Professor Dr. Haji Mohammed Hatta Ali, UN Swiss-Indo Consumer Protection, Tukiminto, and Mr. Sino, the great President of the United Nations, holder and owner of country certificate covering land series 1 to 4, declaring that UN Swiss-Indo Debt Burden Liberation Certificate is absolute truth, is legal and is effective as mutatis mutandis. And since the Debt Burden Liberation Certificate issued February 4th, 2016, the banks have no more right to collect payment or withdraw funds from debtors, because the legal relationship between debtors and banks by law have ended. The status of money changed, withdrawn, is no longer considered as debt repayment money. Therefore, it is now legal. The following is soon coming into force. M1 Master Bond Voucher, in accordance with EID, as account number with the initial balance of human obligation US dollar 600 and US dollar 1200, valid for each month, and UN Swiss-Indo Compensation Committee, Military Police, UN Swiss-Indo country, top institutions, etc. US dollar 1.2 million valued one time only in 6 prime banks. So basically, guys, this is like declaring that all debt globally is going to be wiped by this gold-backed bond that is being issued in payment for everybody's loans, everybody's debt. So in legal terms, it will be paid for. So the banks and the entities that are behind those debt bonds to the people will have nothing to come back to because it's being paid by somebody else, by this organisation who is trying to raise and defeat the humanity that have been trapped upon by debt. And guys, this is all understood by the British royal family, the United Nations, the World Bank Group, and has been signed by these people. So you tell me what you make of all that, because it looks to me like they've already rolled it out in Indonesia and are covering a lot of the world debt if accumulated before that certain date of February 2016. Anyway, I know it's extremely long-winded, and hopefully I can trim this down so it's a bit more manageable. But nonetheless, extremely fascinating in the times ahead. And there's other stories coming out regarding if you do believe in this light. Sorry, yeah, and that takes me on to something else. This comes down to this, which is this name was raised inside of one of these articles I was reading regarding this story. And I googled who this person was, or what this person is. And it's coming back with basically light, effectively, inside of a person. So it would kind of point me more in the direction of, if you believe this is what is going to happen, there's this cleansing of the earth, then the higher entity that is coming and creating this must be some form of a watcher, a god form. And with that, there's going to be the constant struggle of the negative form, the fake light, the Lucifer. And this is where it just starts to blow your mind when you kind of try to think about logically what is going on. And following on from my last video, it's not our duty to understand what is going on. We just have to enjoy our lives and do our best to help humanity and help each other, not to fight each other, because that is, how does that help anything if you're fighting each other? I'm kind of thinking this is all about your journey as a person, as a soul, as a being, and how many people have their lives and souls reset on each life form that they have, which is why there was other articles and other videos telling you about how your souls get reharvested and sent back down to earth, where your energy is consumed. Because guys, every time you go to work, earn your money, buy your silver, buy your gold, you're transferring your energy into the system to get something of a commodity in return. Now that's a lot better than people that just have fiat currencies. But is that the be-all and end-all of existence, trying to become more wealthy financially, when in reality people of previous lifetimes, of previous civilizations, used to be highly intelligent, used to be, I mean, you can just look at things like temples, previous civilizations, Inca civilizations, that knew how to control and use energies and the land and all that sort of thing to harvest a more spiritual connection. Because if you think about the actual planet and what it is that we have and how we are just destroying a lot of it, and all people care about is finance, money, working your life to finally pay off a mortgage, which is on an ever-inflating cycle through design. Anyway guys, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for watching.